What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the pod at ROLC. Thank you so much for watching, listening to today's episode, as we are always just trying to get a little bit better at just being Christians and all the different stories and areas and all the things. And today, I want to say a big welcome to episode number 10. We did it. We made it. We're finally here, and we got some really special guests for episode 10. We've got our own lead pastors, Pastor Mike, Pastor Kristy. Thank you guys for being with us today for our big celebratory episode 10.
10.
It's 10.
Well, thank you for having us.
I'm going to try to get Caden to edit in some confetti or something on the screen or balloons.
I mean, I want to say thank you for having us on. I've been kind of nervous about coming on, honestly, because I really didn't know what we're going to be.
Is this both your guys' first time on a podcast of any
I think so.
sorts?
Honestly. Yeah.
I mean, I know that you've preached all across the world.
Oh, yeah.
Doing those things, but it's actually on.
No,
Actually
a
like this,
podcast.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
this is our
Cool.
first.
Cool.
On 10.
Live TV,
So,
all that, but not this.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is
cool.
different.
Yeah.
So thanks. I've been
And
watching
you've
them.
been doing a great job on
thank
them.
you.
I
I have
just wanted
loved
to
them.
say yes.
Yeah.
You've been doing great.
I appreciate
love the podcast. I love watching it. So everybody just needs to be tuning in, okay?
That's right.
It's always encouraging. I mean, it's so good.
Oh, yeah, especially when we have people within the church that are on and you hear their stories. It's I had no idea.
Right.
I had no clue. And it's just so it's cool to see it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we've been talking about this probably since episode 3 or 4. It's okay, at 10, we got to do something big. And I was like,
Uh-oh.
I'm going to
Big.
get,
We're the big ones.
you guys are the big episode 10. So,
No pressure.
No pressure. But yes, honestly, I have to say, though, I have been,
You were.
I've been a little, I don't know why.
So let's see how it goes.
well, you've got a lot of, and I won't spoil anything for anybody, but we were talking yesterday about some of your nervousness of other things that are
Yeah.
happening in a few days
Yeah.
from now. And it's
Yeah.
just what a thing, huh?
Yeah.
Today what we're going to be talking about is longevity and how you've been doing things for a long, but here you are doing new things.
That sounds weird though. A long time. We've been doing things a
Yeah.
long
Yeah. And we won't get there yet, but it is just
Yeah.
for me to talk to you of, yesterday
No,
you were
yeah.
hey, I'm nervous about
No,
this.
yeah.
And then
I
new
get it.
things.
And honestly, if you think about it, that's the cool thing with serving the Lord. It'll probably come up in our conversation, but because you just never know. You never know what God's
New roads.
doing. Yeah, new roads.
Yeah, you
That's
guys
what we
say it all
say.
the time.
We say it riding motorcycles, new roads. Here it is. Don't freak out. Let's just enjoy the ride.
You guys are
Look around while
you guys
you're
are
there.
on a new continent of what's about to be
Yeah.
forget new roads. You're in a whole different new that's headed your way right now.
I'm excited. We're excited. Well, who knows?
Yeah. It's exactly you never take for example our last episode that went out by the time this airs 2 weeks ago. Pastor Chris. I never would have thought that I
Sure.
would have. Pastor Chris would have been here with us and to have an hour of his time, and it's just you never know. You never know what God's
Because I
doing.
remember going to camp with you,
Yeah.
taking you as a camper
Right.
to YFN, and Chris being like,
Yeah. Hey, that's that long time ago.
there's longevity again.
That's that long time ago
Ouch.
stuff.
Yes, definitely.
So-
But
So I'd have
it
never
is
imagined
wild.
that.
Right.
Never.
And then there it was. So it's like I say, you never know. You never know when you're serving God what's going to happen and what He's going to do. And so today, that's kind of what I want to talk about with you guys. Is I want to talk about this idea of turning every single day into a legacy. And this idea that, so many times I hear people all the time, and it's kind of been a more hot word as of late, but people talking about leaving a legacy behind, that they want to have things for their kids or generations to follow. But that the idea is that you can say it, but you can't make it happen that day or in a week
Correct.
or in a year. It's a lifetime
Right.
to make this happen. And so, when I was thinking about episode 10 and all these things, and for me, one thing was that we're just staying consistent, posting every 2 weeks, like we said that we were going to do, and airing these out. And it's okay, we made it to 10 and trying to be consistent in these things. But I thought, who better people to talk about being faithful, being consistent, sticking with something? Because you guys have been here for 19 years right now.
Yeah.
This October, does that makes 20?
No,
We'll be going on
It'll make 19,
yeah.
going on 19 years. That is a while.
And honestly, anymore, really, you don't see a whole lot of pastors staying in, per se, a church for like this length of period of time,
Sure.
or if
Or
they've
any
done,
pastor.
yeah, any pastor.
Youth pastor,
I mean,
kids pastor.
sure, because I don't know, it's just,
When we started into youth ministry, the longevity of a youth pastor was like 18 months.
Yeah.
That was like a long time for a youth pastor. And, the first youth pastor we had, we were 5 years.
and then the second position we were 5 years.
So,
So, kind of like yourself,
Yeah.
I mean, it is, but when you're just doing it, you're doing God's work and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's just,
And it's one of those things too. You talk about that of even just that position of pastors and stuff. Like, I look around my own circle of even just youth pastors in the area and stuff, and like, because I know that he watches, like, Pastor Caleb. Like, aside from him, there's not many that I'm connected with that have been doing this a long time. Like, him
and a lot of them, they're just new.
Sure, yeah,
Because it's rolled over.
Yeah, they're like they just moved in, or I'll rarely but go to lunch or something with the whole group,
Sure.
and then the next
Sure.
time it's like all new faces. It'd be
new
like me,
faces.
him,
Sure.
and then a bunch of people we don't even know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, it's just this rollover all the time, and we see it in lead pastors too, and all these things, and so I came in. I guess about halfway through this progression of things here at RLC.
Yeah.
I came in with, I wasn't here because, and we'll talk about this later, but, you always share about when you guys started, there was, 8 of you?
Yep.
8 people.
8 people.
Then us and our family, so made 12.
Yeah, a dozen of you all together. And this past Easter, we had over 600 people here. And it's just like, but it doesn't happen.
No.
That wasn't one year.
No.
That wasn't just handing out flyers one week and 600 people showed up.
Right. And you actually shared with us kind of just the topic, like, legacy or longevity. And I was and it really made me start thinking, about how all these things have come about, so many things. I mean, if you stop and think for just a second, like, you go back to purple carpet.
Sure.
You go back to the very first sanctuary. Because, I mean, we've had multiple sanctuaries.
And we
place,
spun the
just
original
spun
one.
it around.
Yeah.
Every which way you could.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so you go, wow.
And, a lot of people don't even look at that like we had a sanctuary that fit 200 people. We needed one for 300. All we did was turn it around, and we fed 100 more chairs without spending any money except building a stage.
Yep.
And we actually took the material from the old stage and built the new
We
stage.
took
Yeah,
material
so-
out of, and we, refurbished and just did it. So
And then we needed a place for 500, so we built the sanctuary. So we had to add on them.
it's
but,
cool.
Yeah.
But just to stop and think sometimes,
It's been
blows my mind.
I mean, I remember I was, a kid in high school, and to mow the property here.
yeah.
5
Yeah,
hours.
That was I mean, I know you guys did it when you first got
Yes.
here. Both of you together.
We-
I remember you
Yes.
guys both been on riding lawnmowers.
Yes.
You guys
Yes.
up here mowing the property together. But I remember I would do it in the summer. I mean, it was 5-6 hours of just mowing.
Yep.
Not even touching the weed eater yet.
Sure.
And now you look around and it's just like there's asphalt everywhere and concrete.
It's
and
just the hillside that you mow out front.
yep, that's it. Just a little bit right up front.
It's like it's all asphalt now.
And that's it. And so it is crazy to think about all these changes and even the ones that I've got to see over. But that it just doesn't happen overnight, that it takes time. And even as you guys just spoke there of like the stages of taking the old material to make the new, I think that's one thing that a lot of people here, and certainly I can appreciate, is that yes, we want things to get done, but we don't always do it sometimes the quickest way. We do it the most financially responsible way. That, you might have to park on gravel for a year or, this or that, but it's just like what's most important
Right.
in these
Priorities.
seasons and in these moments. And so I want to ask you guys, as we kind of get going here, this first question, and this was something that was asked to you, Pastor Mike. I think it was as we were getting ready for a Good Friday service, maybe in that time frame. But somebody asked you the question, the sanctuary, we've got all the stuff set up for Easter, and you were asked, did you ever think, and I don't remember exactly how it's worded, did you ever think that this place would look like, and this is by somebody that's been here for...
just outside of probably 3 years. So, 16.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
16
been
years,
here almost
yeah.
as long as you guys have for the last 16 years.
17
Somebody
years,
that's
something like that.
seen it all the way through, seen
A lot of changes.
all the changes,
Yeah.
and asked you, did you ever think
Yeah.
this would look like this? And would you just kind of both just share that thought of like, here we are?
My quick answer was no, not necessarily. My prayer has always been that we are a continually growing church. You know, that's always been, I think, our prayer always is because I feel like, you know, as a leader, as a pastor, like if I ever come to that place where I'm just maintaining, you know, am I done?
Right.
Because have I come to that place where, you know, if I'm just maintaining then, because I feel like there's so many people still in our area, in our region that still need to be won. Now, I'm not interested in taking one fishbowl out of another fishbowl to put it in. So,
sure.
But no, the answer was, quick answer, no, I didn't see it. Because, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't know anything. I still don't know a whole lot of anything about all this media stuff and, you know, all the lighting and stuff. Yeah. But we've got people here now that have come alongside of us and brought this to the vision of what it is. So
I think you have always envisioned being able to build and where the buildings would go. And I mean, between the two of us, it's like we would come up with these ideas of, like, we were standing in the old sanctuary one day and he was planning how to turn it. And I just happened to be standing there by him and I'm like, why don't you check out this whole stage? Mm-hmm. And he turned to me and he's like, wait a second. And like, you could see the wheels turning, he started seeing it. And so it's like, he's always been with the first time we ever pulled up on this property and began to pray over this property almost 19 years ago now. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, in June 19 years ago, we pulled on this property. We were asked to come preach here, and we were like, both of us felt something so just rejuvenated in us, like God wants to do something here big.
We felt it, but we sure didn't see it. You know what I'm saying?
It was a grass parking lot.
Yes. Your daughters will both attest
yes,
to that as well.
They will attest. The little 700 square foot parsonage, and I don't know that we ever saw like the buildings and everything that we see today. He's always had a vision for that. I'm like, hey, just make some room. Like,
because I've been in construction and, you know, building, you know.
But I think we've always seen the people. Like, we've always desired. Yeah. And it's not that we did. I don't want a mega church, because like with mega, I guess we are mega. We live in a town of like 400 or 180 and we run 400 or so.
Yeah.
And so anyway, but because it is bigger problems, it's more stuff. But I want people saved. Like, we've always just wanted people saved.
Yeah. I think honestly, let's go back to the mowing. You know, I mean, there was multiple times, I mean, I would envision things while mowing, looking at this property, seeing the highway, you know, and then, you know, when the highway expanded, you know, it's forced us to make changes too.
And what we originally thought,
yes.
They're taking the front of the parking lot, and this is going to be a
yes.
mess. And then it starts turning into, you're going to pay for a new driveway.
You're going to do
excavation.
So, and we had double driveways now.
You're going to pave our parking lot for us?
Yes.
And it's like...
So there was things there that, you know, there's things in growth that sometimes you don't see it, and you don't know how it's going to work again, you know, but...
I think part of that, though, is just, you know, being able... There's times you have to be able to see past the circumstances or bad things that are going on, or events that are taking place, whether it be people, buildings, whatever. I think you always we have to do it a lot, you know, of like going back and remembering the goodness of God.
Where we came from.
And like, you know, we thought that was going to be so bad. But look what God did.
Yeah.
Look what he turned this around to. It's like you guys always say, preaching, you know, it's like, it's those but God moments. It's those moments that, like, you think it's going to be a bad deal, but all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, this is, okay, Lord, I'm for this.
Yeah. Those go back to that
often
question,
in ministry.
No, I didn't see the things that like that. This past Easter, it was beautiful. I mean, that's just getting all of us in a room and casting that vision.
The creativity here was here.
Oh my goodness!
Everything in the room was the whole place looked so amazing.
So 19 years ago,
but the people is what was so good.
Yeah, and even too, you know, if like, let's go back to the Easter thing. You know, this past Sunday, of all these salvations that came out of Easter, people that showed up for Easter, and they were like, "I'm here. I'm not committing to this." Then they showed up again, and again. And then this past Sunday, they're like, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready. And then we got, you know, all these salvations. And they all, and it's just like, there's some visions, some stuff happening, going through there. Just like that. That's pretty cool stuff to see.
That's good.
One Well, I think that's great as far as that, the longevity. And so my second thought on this today, we talk about, and I actually just heard you say this the other day, but I want you guys to think back on like maybe some key moments over the last 19 years, not to put you on the spot, but some moments, if you will, because I want this to be able to relate, not just ministry. Yeah, there's pastors that are probably listening to this, but people in their own lives. Like what you just talked about, did you see this 19 years ago? No, but I saw bits and pieces. And I think people see that in their children. They don't know everything that their kids are going to do, but they can see a vision for their kids' lives. Or for a marriage. You don't know what every day looks like, but you know in 40 years what you hope it's going to look like.
Yes.
And so I think that as we share that, and so I want you to think about, over the last 19, 20 years of some key moments, maybe a story or something of that. This was when ministry shifted. And as you're thinking, I heard you saying, you were talking to somebody on the phone yesterday, and you were talking about how when my connections got outside of my town, the church began to grow. God began to do new things. I remember thinking about, for me, that right here where we're sitting used to be an awning, and it was a drive-through. And I had just kind of started hanging around. You're like, hey, let's run to the church. A guy wants to buy the pulpit. And I was like, what? I don't even know what that means. And so we show up, and these guys from Louisiana, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Somewhere.
Was it?
I think so.
They were from like way far off.
Yeah.
Maybe
They drove like 12 hours or something to get here or something
and
like
they
that.
bought
the
massive 500-pound pulpit, and they were just
solid
so
oak,
excited.
Solid oak, golden oak stained. I mean, it was,
They were, and it was great because it was exactly what they needed.
And you were just as excited to see it go.
Yep.
Get that sucker out of here. Like, let's get.
What's the old saying? One man's junk is
Trash
another
is
man's
another man's.
trash is
Probably
treasure.
wasn't junk.
Yeah, I don't know if we can say that about a pulpit, but we're going
No,
to
it's definitely not that.
whatever. But
forgive us, Lord.
But, we talked about, as far as like some of the circle, but do you guys have some key moments that you can think of, like, this was a point that things changed here? Or maybe it's in your own lives, your own, whatever it might be. And you're like, wow, this was when something really began to change.
Yeah, I think always, and I don't know if this is actually a key moment, if you will, but I think something that was really key for us is having goals, if you will. And, I can remember when we hit 40 people. You know what I mean? That was a key moment. And it was just like, it started feeling like a church, if you will. And then you were seeing people get saved. And that, to me, that still is a key moment. Like this next Sunday, it's another key moment. I want to see people saved.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so when you started seeing those things happening and those lives being changed and coming in, it was key. And I know that there's probably some that Kristy can probably remember it better than I, but going back to your comment or that you heard, yes, that was very much a huge. That's just like just past recent, 6-7 years ago. But you got any?
Yeah, well, you said it was putting people in your life who were outside of your realm of influence. So yes, we knew a lot of people in this area. We always have. We grew up around here.
Can I just say this on that? That honestly was some of the part that I didn't want. I mean, I don't know if I've ever shared that. No, I didn't want to come back to my hometown.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I was like, really?
Else?
Yeah,
I'm going back to Nazareth.
Yeah, so I think you can preach the story of like Christ. He shows up and he's like, I'm out of here because I can't do many miracles.
And people would look at me and still look at me as I was 10 years old or 12 years old.
Or football player
guy. Yeah, pulling all that back up. And it's like, it's not, and I still have people today that all they know me as is then. You know what I mean? So
it's always hard for people to travel with you to your next season. We trap people in time.
Yeah, sorry, I got off subject on that a little bit.
But we do. And I think even for us, like I think we were so trapped by this mentality of like, God called us here. We're here. We're here, okay, God, we're going to do your work. We're going to do your work. But it wasn't until he started opening those doors, to meet people and partner with people It's not that we just have people in our life. We have people who mentor, who we look to, who when things go wrong or before things go wrong, we call them, we reach out for that. And so that broadens it. I think that's good in whether it's your marriage, whether it's a job, whatever it is in your life. Like, that's not just ministry. That's healthy across the board to put people in your life who can draw you out of your past or draw you out of what you've just put the little circle you've put yourself into. I think also some key moments for me, as a matter of fact, one of them happened like the weekend before last, setting at team night. Watching 130 plus people, volunteers, sitting in a room who serve at this church, who love people. They love God and they love people, and that's something our church has always thrived on, is just love. They reach out to people. And so just watching this, I can remember sitting back in what is now our Wee Kids area, which was the fellowship hall, and having like 20 people back there and thinking, oh my goodness, we've got 20 people who are going to like
helping us.
help, in these areas and stuff.
Pack eggs or something.
And we were so excited.
Imagine how many we could do now with all 100,000 eggs.
We're not doing any more eggs. But it was just these moments of realizing like what team meant and what it meant to actually pour into a team. And again, like you said, this goes for across the board. That's not just in ministry. Like, you have to learn in your marriage that this is a team. We have to learn, on the job, wherever we're at, like, this is a team thing.
I think too, if we go back, even, and we're talking about how people can relate to this, like, just in life or walking out your Christian walk too. I'd never preached 3 sermons in a week,
Right.
So, and, you're bivocational. I mean, I'm crawling off a roof, on Wednesdays.
Sure.
I'm coming in preaching on Wednesday nights, and
Back
we're
to
doing
work Thursday morning.
Sunday
Friday.
morning, Sunday night. So I think it's understanding what we're doing, whether it's your marriage, whether it's relationships, whether it's, whatever it is. It's like, you got to just put your whole self into it. I believed the Lord would guide us. I just believed that the Lord had called us. I mean, because everything here didn't
make sense.
It didn't make sense
In
the natural eye and the flesh. It didn't make sense. When you pull on this place and you're like, this is where we're supposed to be. We're leaving both of us on staff at a church, a 3,000 square foot home to a 700 square foot home. The girls, our oldest daughter, your wife, said, does God hate us?
Yeah. I think that you said, moments and like stories here, that I think that was a defining moment for us, was literally, I'll never forget, like, Michaela, our oldest daughter, your wife, is in 6th grade, and she thinks God hates us, but she didn't recognize that until our house flooded. And so we had this basement that it was almost Christmas time. So we had, in order to put a Christmas tree up in our house, we had to take half the furniture out and put it in the basement because it was so small. And so we had put all this stuff in the basement. I had put all their memorabilia, pictures, the whole 9 yards in the basement. Well, it rained around here, and it rained, like, it kept raining. And it had rained like 6 or 7 inches. And we pumped out over 27,000 gallons of water out of our basement, and we hadn't even been here 3 months.
Bigger than your pool.
Yeah, my pool's 18,000.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Like,
it's like 2 of your pool here.
Yeah.
So okay, but I was taking the girls to school that morning. Walk down there, there's water up to my knees almost, and I'm like,
our stuff is floating,
and everything in the basement's
Merry Christmas.
floating.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to you. So I call him. He's on the job. He comes home. He's just like panicked. He's like, it's up over what? I'm like, the cinder blocks that are down here, like those big concrete blocks, they're gone. So we had this, but there was this moment where we had some lifelong friends. They're still our dear friends. They always have been. They live right close here. And they came, and they were the only people we really knew to call.
Yeah.
And like, they came that night, stayed up all night with us, sweeping water, pumping water out of our house.
Yeah.
And I remember him being so aggravated, and I looked at him and I told him, you remember that the steps of a righteous man are ordered by God.
Well,
and
I
said,
didn't
it's
like you
not,
saying that,
No,
though.
he turned
And flooded.
he turned and looked at me like he was going to strangle me, and I'm like, I'm just telling you what God says.
You got the order wrong.
Yeah.
But it was this
I'm taking it back.
moment.
Fix my order.
It was this moment that made us realize that, like,
Here we are.
our calling was greater than our quitting. That we couldn't just quit in the middle of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Number one,
Yeah.
we was going to drown if we did. It was after that our daughter was like,
She got it, and
God
have
hates
lived,
us. He
lived
has
through
to.
all the stuff. I guess another key moment would have been when we, remodeled the parsonage. I mean, we'd lived in it for a couple of years like that, and we remodeled it, and got new bedrooms, and we, expanded it
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. But I don't know. There's a lot of
And now that's where our offices are.
yeah.
it's demolished. It's gone.
Mowed it
and
down.
There's sometimes I actually am standing in the kitchen in our new commercial kitchen up there and everything, or
Yeah,
somewhat commercial, that I'm standing there looking out the back window, and I'm like, deja vu.
I've done this
I'm
before.
like, oh my goodness, I've
15
been
years
here
ago.
before.
Yeah.
It is interesting though. I mean, and I know we could go probably hours
yeah.
on
Yeah.
stuff and stories of, but key moments were putting people in our lives, understanding that you can do, do the things that you're supposed to do.
Right.
I mean, it is within life the same way. Sometimes when we face things that are really, really hard, I think you got to just lean into the Lord. I can remember fasting during those times. I was, working a construction job full time, and I'd gone, 14 days of just no food. We'd been 21-day fast, and I can remember thinking, I'm doing all of these things, and I'm still up here doing this. I'm on a roof. I've come off. I'm 14 days in. I've not had anything. I'm still preaching. I'm still working. I'm still, and had this huge moment in my life that was just like a breakthrough. Like, God, you're real. You're doing this. This is.
I think you actually came off the roof and laid
I
on the ground
screamed.
and started crying because
Yeah,
it
I
was like,
screamed. I
God, you're
hollered,
doing
and
this
they
for
looked
me.
at me. The guys were like, "Man, what's wrong with Mike?" And they knew though.
Yeah.
They knew.
I know what was going on. I think that's good to hear, and it actually, like the next thought that I was having was, I was thinking about relationships and these things, and really that's been your guys' answer. It sounds like for a lot of this is either one, realizing that as the message from a couple weeks ago, you're born for the storm, like you can make it through the storms, but then also two, just learning to put people around you and helping you, and whether that's personal things for when your house floods, whether it's spiritual when you feel like your life is flooding, and what do I do? What would be your guys' advice to people that in this area of relationships, of maintaining these relationships, or it's like some of these better ones that you have? What are some things that you guys have done, have learned, maybe things that didn't work so good, and that you guys have now learned how to put people around you? And I think one thing that's been really good is you guys like, hey, I don't know how to do this. I've heard both of you say it. Hey, to people, I don't know how to do this. This is why you're in my life.
Yeah.
I need your help to show me what to do because I don't have a clue. So what's some of your guys' thoughts on that, on just relationships, keeping them healthy, maintaining them?
I think just to start out here, though, is like, I think the disclaimer in this is none of us actually know how to actually sustain relationships. I mean, yes, marriage is this covenant that we have, and and a lot of times you do it because that piece of paper keeps telling you to do it, but I don't think as people, most generally, at least 90% of people are not very good at long-term, or at relationships in general,
Agreed.
and especially nowadays with social media, it's just people think they know people when they really don't know people. So it is a different time period that we're in here, certainly different than when we first started out, because we still have relationships with people, every place we've ever served, and any job I've ever had, he's ever had, we have those long-term relationships that I'm still friends with those people. I'm still I still think the world of them. So I think you always have to look at that, because in church, any pastor who pastors will tell you that it's difficult. It's hard relationships are hard in that.
And sometimes this position or this calling is a lonely place, but at the same time too, I'll kind of go in a roundabout way, but sustaining relationships, I don't know necessarily all about sustaining them or long-term. You have a few of those because you only allow so many people to come so close. if that makes sense.
We can only
But
hold that many, you know.
But at the same time, in this position as a pastor and a leader, and we've already kind of shared of, like we've had a lot of people come in from 8 to 450.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but in that, man, we've had so many go. Good friends, beautiful people that have been in our lives.
Yeah.
And
because God uses people for a season.
that's
in
what
our
I was going to
lives
say.
sometimes.
That's where I was going. And that those times are for certain seasons. And I just really, I think some people need to hear this, that sometimes it's okay. Not every relationship has to be
To the grave.
right. And that some people will come into your lives that have a gift and abilities and talents that's needed for that. And we say, well, we don't use people. Well,
We're all
that is-
transactional.
we are.
Every single
Everything's
person.
reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
You want a
life-
friend? Be a friend. Well, what is that? That's a transaction.
So in turn, I think we get hung up on that and I think what we need to do is we got to thank God for those people that were in our lives right then and there.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I think I think what happens a lot of times with relationships is we lose the value for people. Like they're not in your life anymore because they're not in the same circle of people. You're not hanging around them. You don't work at McDonald's anymore,
Right.
or you don't work at the bank. You don't work, like for me, I didn't work at the college anymore. I still stay in contact with those people from here and there, but I don't see them every day.
Right, you're doing different
and
things.
so I think a lot of
Yeah.
times it's this unrelenting rule in church that seems like that when someone leaves here that you have to track them for the rest of their
Yeah.
life.
And it's okay.
And it's like, wait, what? Like you should be going, if you're leaving here with a purpose, which that should be your reason, then you are leaving to fulfill something. And if it's at another church, if it's ministry that you're going
Absolutely.
to help in or do, then by all means, it's like, let's see the value in that, and I shouldn't have to put a tracker on you though. It's like, let's say hello to each other. Let's, if you think of having coffee, text me, but we can't track everyone like that. And I think that's kind of this
Yeah.
underlying rule in church that they don't tell you about, that
Yeah.
no one knows how to do.
That it's okay to let people go.
Yes.
Yeah. But thank
times
God for
happen.
them in that
Right.
season of my life. I
Definitely.
mean, that's just
They
the key.
brought much value.
That's a key.
And I thank God for them.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean
Absolutely.
that every season includes all the
Absolutely.
same people.
Definitely.
That's good.
And I think too, like when you can understand that, you can also enjoy the new relationships as you
Yes.
make them. We had the conversation. You and I went and played golf. A couple other guys
Yep.
earlier in the week, and we were talking about one of the guys that went, just like the nicest guy ever. And I don't even think that you know this yet, but him and I, because I was driving, he was in the car with me, and he had hollered out. I think he said, "Mike, what's my score?" And so you told him, and we got back in. He says, "What should I call him?" He says, "That felt weird." And I said, that's a little bit tricky for me to answer because I
Yeah.
am his son-in-law, but
Right.
yes, I do work here. So I said, when people are around, I said, it's always Pastor Mike. I said, at the house, I said, I really don't know what. And he says, Well, then the next time I heard him, he hollered out, he said, "Hey, Pastor, what was my score on
Yeah,
that one?"
yeah,
And he
yeah.
came back and he says, that felt way more natural. He says, the first one just felt like.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he says,
That's
he said, I'm going to just say that instead. I said,
Yeah.
call it whatever. And it was just funny of just hearing that new thought, but of just this new relationship of somebody coming in just kind of fresh to it. And I was like, how fun is that I just got to even be just to be a part of that and just hearing that.
People look at me weird though sometimes because
Yeah, you call it
I call
pastor.
him pastor,
Yeah.
and it's like I was talking to someone the other day and they were looking at me and I kept referring, well, pastor said this. I didn't say my husband. I didn't say, Mike said
They're thinking
this. I
like,
said,
is she at a
pastor
different
said-
church? Or
Yes.
what is-
And the question was, it was someone who was new. And I kept saying pastor. And finally they looked at me and they were like, "Aren't you his wife?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yes."
You go home with the pastor all the time.
Yeah, I do. But it was like, but he's my husband. He's my husband, yes, but he's my pastor too.
Yeah,
And
right.
I'm going to honor that, in that setting. And so it's gotten so natural that like I'll be talking to a good friend or something and it's like, pastor, and they're like, I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it is interesting, and I think that relationships can be just a whole podcast, and it can be it
yeah.
can be 10 episodes.
Sure, sure.
Another thought that I was having of just preparing some of these things was on the thought of relationships and some of these things. Like you guys, as you said, you've been in this area your whole lives. I mean, we can go out to eat any given time, any given place, and there's going to be people that we all, like you guys are just a constant in the area. But, you know, I know that there had to be times over the last 19 years, I'm sure, and you don't have to get specifics, but I would imagine that there had to be times that just want to be like, I just want to quit, or I just want to be done, or I just want to go. You know, I want to be the pastor at the church on the beach in Mexico, and like I want God to call me there.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Where's it at? And
Which one?
yeah, right. And
We just need a beach here, and it would be perfect.
all of your friends in South Texas are like, yeah, come on down.
Come on.
But, you know, I'd want to ask you guys, because I feel like for a lot of people that all the time people are in this fight or flight mode.
Yep.
They get into something, they love
Absolutely.
it, it gets hard.
Absolutely.
Gone. They
Absolutely.
take off. And I would want to ask you guys, whether it's ministry, whether it is just, you know, your lives as a whole, what would be some advice that you would give to people on staying? You know, we're talking about this thought of legacy, of doing something that's going to last for generations. You know, when you think about, let's think about generational wealth, if you will.
Sure.
Like there had to be somebody that was sound that taught it to the next person to be sound, to the next. And I think it's the same thought of being constant for people's lives. Like you have to stay to teach others how to stay and others. And so, you know, we see it like we've even talked about. I talked with somebody, we'd had a men's night a couple weeks ago. Afterwards, I was talking to him. He's been here, a guy that's been here for about 4 years now. And he said, it's crazy that I look around the room. He's like, I'm like an old person around here. He's like, I've seen so many men come and go. He's like, I haven't been here near as long as you or pastors or anything like that. He's like, I feel like I've just, he said, I feel like I'm established. And he's really plugged in around here. But, you know, 4 or 5 years. And to have that feeling, and that 4 or 5 years now is considered, you know, a long time of being somewhere. And so, again, just to restate the question, what would be your guys' thoughts of people that they feel like fleeing, or times in your lives that you're like, I wanted to run, I wanted to quit, but I didn't, and maybe why you didn't?
I can really think, and it's just interesting because you said the specific spot where we're at right now. So where we're at, just over adjacent to us right here was the back door. My office was just on the other side, right over here at the first. I'll never forget, I got a phone call. I got we were probably, 4 or 5 years in here? Something like that.
We were much farther than that.
Oh, was it 7?
Caitlin was in high school. So
Oh, okay, so we were a lot longer.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm trying to think. So
Anyway.
about 2015.
So I had gotten a call that there was a church that their pastor had resigned, and they were looking for, and I had gotten a call. And I'm going somewhere with this because I think, you know, there's always those possibilities that are in your mind. Is this, you know, what is next? What's going on? What is this? Is this the Lord? You know, is this, you know? And so I was like, yeah, put my name in. You know, it was just, I was out here walking on this pavement thing out here, this pull through. And I was out here, and I remember, and
1 minute, like it was 1 minute. That you
it was,
up.
it was, and I hung up, and I didn't even make it back into my office. And I just heard the Holy Spirit say, nuh-uh. and I didn't even hesitate. I called right back, asked for the name, and told him, I said, nope, just take my name off. I said, the Holy Spirit just checked me on it and this. Now, I say all that to say this. In times of transitions, or times of when you want to throw a towel in, and times that I think sometimes there's nothing wrong. I heard a pastor friend, a mentor of ours once before, say there's never nothing wrong with cracking the door and putting your foot in. There's never a time that's wrong to say, just let's crack that door a little bit, let's see.
If you're feeling that.
Yeah,
you know,
if that's
in the room.
Right. And I think what her and I have always said, and we always have to follow peace. We felt peace in our spirit moving here. Did it look right? No. Did it look right leaving Alpena to go over there? You know, the small. I mean, I feel like I'm the leader of the family. I'm the priest of the home. Yeah. I'm the shepherd. I moved my family, you know, 3 times now, and that's a big thing. To pick your kids up, to pick your family up, move them, put them in another school, etc. You know, that was things.
That was one thing we had, you know, asked God when we came
here. But
to
quit, there's been times, yes, I've wanted to. I'm done.
Yeah, and Florida looked really good.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean there
Or my
were-
house looked pretty good. I just want to stay at home.
Yeah.
I think from a different perspective
Yes.
though is that I am natural. He is not a runner. You know, he is not a mentality runner. He is a very, you know, like,
Let's punch through.
yeah, let's do this. You know, my mind, I come from running. You know, I mean, I come from a divorced family. I come from, you know, parents who would, you know, walk away from situation. Not that it was
Not to
their,
deal
but
with
yeah, not that this is not my parents' fault. You know, like it was something I had continued with, but it's things that are implanted at you when you're younger that sometimes you carry those in, no matter if it's ministry, marriage, whatever it may be, you carry those things in there. And so I had to cut that run mentality, but that run always happens in my mind still. So what happens is as soon as conflict or hardships come, like I automatically start making that, okay, where's the exit door? You know, what's the plan here? What is plan B? In case, you know, that, and so I'm one of these planners. It's like, okay, I got to plan this out. And it's one thing that used to, the enemy would use it against me.
Yeah.
And he would use it as a tool against me. And so probably about 10 years ago now, it dawned on me that like, I may have been a runner, but I've never run. Like I've never, I didn't run away from our marriage. I've never actually run, even though it happens in my mind, I've never run. And so I started this whole thought process of what am I running to? What exactly is it that I think I'm going to be running to?
Right.
And what am I running from? What is it that is causing me to feel like I need to flee from this situation? And is it something I can deal with, or is it something I can walk through? And a lot of times that's where the goodness of God comes in, because it's like, okay, I do see a greener field, and it is right over there. I just have to keep stepping.
Yeah.
And I can't quit on this.
That's a good thing.
A few years ago, you know, it's like I bought some towels for a couple of people, and it was like I gave it to them, and I was like, don't throw the towel in. You know, I put one in my drawer, and I'm like, don't you throw the towel in either. You know, it's like that towel stays in my drawer because, you know, even though you say, you know, we take a position somewhere else, it's still the fact that it's like, okay, if I haven't finished this assignment, then I'm actually throwing the towel in. And I think it's the assignment that always keeps you on course, the calling.
Yeah.
You know, it'll keep you in places that are difficult.
Where's your why? You know, what's your why? You know, and so there's been times if I think if any leader or anybody would ever, a pastor, or if there's pastors listening, I'm sure that, but I think there's going to be those moments when you want to. There's going to be those days. They always say that what do you love about the most? It's the people. What gets discouraging the most? It's the people.
Sure.
You know, so it's like but you always have to remember what you're doing it for. I just guess, like she's kind of alluded to, maybe I'm just hard-headed enough to, you know, I'm just going to barrel through it.
Yeah, I said I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Stick with it.
Whatever. I mean, if I said yes to God, then I'm going to do it. And there's been days where I didn't even know. I mean, there's been days when there was days up here when I can remember. I don't want to get emotional.
Why not?
But, you know, I remember there was a church in South Arkansas. I don't know how, Pastor Tanner, I don't know how they knew, but they sent us like $300 in the mail. And you say, well, that's...
It was when we
That's
both
not much,
did
but-
not take a salary.
but that-
we had no income, you know, just secular jobs that we were working, trying to build the church,
Just
trying to get the
working-
church out of debt.
Working your butt off.
I mean, that's something that, and I'll interject real quick on your story, that I think a lot of people don't know, is that when you guys first came here that didn't take salary, that I believe, and you can correct me, that you wanted to honor the previous pastor that was here, regardless of that whole situation, that he was still owed what had been promised by the church to give him. And so your salary, instead of you taking it, send it to him.
Yep.
Until that was...
When I collected up to $500, I would send him $500.
Yep.
And that's just... I truly think those moments like that, let's call that another key moment.
Yeah.
It's a key moment that the blessings of God, not just the blessings of Mike's family, but the blessings of God came because of that.
Right.
Upon this church for being,
What
you know,
more?
and us for
What
being
more
faithful to
blessings
it.
could have been rather than just a dollar amount? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean,
And we for a long time, like you said, we're both, you know, bivocational. He worked, you know, it wasn't until, you know, several years in, like a lot of years in, like 6-7 years in, before he came on staff, you know, and it wasn't until like what's it been, almost 7 years now, 7 years
came
now
on.
that I've actually been on. And so, you know, we understand what it's like to be in that.
and I think a lot of people, you know, there's more and more people may be starting to understand the role of, you know, the pastoral position maybe, but I think there's still some of it's like preaching is just 10%. Preaching's just the fun part.
The 45 minutes of actually delivering the sermon, the 40 minutes, it's like,
That's the best part.
I don't have to stress.
That's
Right.
the best part.
We were up in the office
Just preach
today.
it.
There was drama going on. I
Yeah.
was over here in a phone call.
Yeah, it's
and
just-
one of the other pastors was like, golly, this is just a headache today.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want to preach.
Sure. And
Can we just take the pulpit?
Yeah.
and decision making, you know, constant decision making.
And what people don't realize, for instance, I got, you know, every now and then we get a weekend off. You know, we get a Saturday where we don't have something going on. And this last Saturday, like early in the morning, I got a text, you know. I didn't answer it because I'm like, God, like, I have one day, you know, my granddaughter's here. So I think, you know, a lot of times people don't really understand, you know, having a secular job and stuff and all that. When you walk out there 8 to 5, like you go
done.
home.
Yeah.
And
They ain't
for
calling
us,
you at FedEx.
you know, it's not that. It's
You
not
know.
that.
Right.
They're not calling you, hey, you need to come back and finish
Yeah.
this, you know, or hey, I got a problem with this, or hey, I need you, you know. And so,
Right.
but again, that's part of the longevity of it. That's part of, like, you do that because you're called. You do that because you love the people and
Yeah.
you love God and you love what He's doing. And yeah, it's the things that almost drive you crazy sometimes, but it's also, and it's the thing that makes you want to like throw in the towel and
Sure.
be like, forget this, I can't do it, you know.
Done.
You almost like Moses most of the time. God, these are your people.
Yeah. These are
You know,
yours.
and God say, no, they're
remember
yours, Moses.
You told
Like,
me to bring your
yeah.
people out.
That's right. Should have closed the water up.
Yeah,
on them.
and so
The
you know,
greatest pastor to ever walk the face of the earth,
exactly.
you know, Moses. So-
Because it can be difficult, but it's never worth quitting on your calling. It's
But-
never worth that.
let's just go back to last weekend. I mean, because that's just the last
The freshest thing here.
freshest thing. Let's just go back to that. You know, for those people that came in last week and got saved, I would reverse it and do everything all over again.
Absolutely.
People
'Cause
ask
it's
me,
worth the one soul.
you know, so man, it just gets tough. Yeah, you know, but I wouldn't change anything right now.
Right.
I would not go do anything else. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. I wouldn't, and I've said that multiple times. I wouldn't, even though sometimes it gets so hard, sometimes it gets so stressful. I mean, sometimes just a week's vacation doesn't, you know,
Doesn't fix it.
You just have to learn.
Amen. I just tried it.
Yeah,
Didn't
It didn't work.
yeah, yeah. It just something.
I was so
can't-
upset. You had
Yeah.
talked about this morning, and it was like I knew going. I was like, I know that I got like their spiritual battle, and I'm going to take this vacation and hope it works, and it didn't. And
Yeah,
I
no.
was like, dadgummit, like I've heard that it's been preached. I knew it wouldn't, and it's just like, what do you
do?
Yeah,
And rest is good, your
Yeah,
body
sure.
just to chill, but sometimes those things they just don't go away. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah,
So
it's good. Well, I think there's some really good thoughts as far as just about, you know, when sometimes we want to leave and we want to take off and flee, but it's like God's called me to this, if it is ministry or if it is, you know, a family or even just like just somebody's own personal life. Of like, I've been called to this, I'm going to stick with it. Yes, it's hard, but stick through it and see what God does on the other side. I think that my last question to you guys is just a closing thought.
already on the last
one. Time. Everybody, we do these,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, you know, we're shooting for
Yeah.
to try not to get more than an hour or
Yeah.
so. And people are like, yo, hey, we'll see if we
They
can
went
make
fast.
it. We'll see if we can make it. And then it's like your hour's up. Like we're trying to wind this down or whatever. But yeah, it goes fast. A few weeks ago, we did that getting ready for Easter one, me and Michaela, and it was like 15 minutes or
Yeah,
something. And
I'm
I felt
sure
like
that
we
was
sat
quick.
down and just like boom. But my
That
last
one
thought,
felt quick.
yeah, it was super fast.
Yeah.
And it was like, we got to get something out, but it's the week of Easter, and
Nobody
the
wants-
podcast isn't that important right now, but it's like, we got to do it. So my last thought to you guys would be is just like a closing thought on legacy, the word, the meaning, what it would mean to you guys. And I was thinking about legacy. Michaela, she just got a new book that Don Cherie just wrote, The Slow Burn.
Yep.
And honestly, I don't even know fully what it's about, but I was just thinking about that slow burn, and that so many times, and I know you guys have seen it way more, I'm sure, than I have, but I've seen it enough over the last 10 years now of being in ministry. I see bright flames, a people, a ministry, a group, an organization, club, whatever you want to label it as. It shows up and it's loud and it's bright and it's hot, and everybody takes off and flocks to it. And by the time you get there, the fire goes out, you're left cold, everybody's standing there, and it's just like, legacy to me is that slow burn, that it's that constant. I can show up here every time. I'm going to be warm. I'm going to be sustained. This fire's not going out. That that it's not just smoke, but that there is heat that is going to keep me alive. And so when I think about this thought of legacy, that legacy, and plug for Sunday, I know where you're going, but that legacy is not just this quick 1 week, hey, I'm going to do this when when they bury me, or that when they put my plaque up. Like, it's not just a 1 week or a 1 moment thing. Like, it's a lifetime, I feel, of legacy. And so I would just want to hear your guys' thoughts a little bit about legacy, and maybe that's what it means to you. Maybe that is, in your eyes, how you feel that you're trying to leave a legacy behind. And I think that when people say legacy, they think it's like this great, but sometimes it's just like leaving behind something that the next generation is going to pick up, that the next generation.
Yeah, and I think of a footprint,
Okay.
when I think of that. But then there's two words kind of that come to mind: understanding culture. I think that's just keeping a legacy, that you have to understand culture. And then I think another word is relevant. And in turn, I think that comes with how we've done what we've done, and to leave a legacy, you have to continue on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, those two words, that's kind of where I was at. So I want to leave a footprint. I want to leave a thumbprint. I want to leave a print, and that I can continue on, and that you can follow, or that people can. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in legacy, for me, it was just understanding culture, that you have to keep going in order to keep the train moving.
Sometimes you have to change a few things to keep the
Right.
momentum
Right.
relevant.
Right. And so in order because a legacy, I think I'm going to put my hands up here because I got to use my hands. I think legacy is moving this. A lot of people will call the church like a ship. And I think it has to be moving. It has to constant. When it stops, I mean, when a tree stops growing, it's dying. So a church is the same way. I think you got to keep.
It's either alive or it's dead.
That's right. There's no middle ground. And so, I'm always thinking, and I've heard it put so many times by leaders in my life, of people, that you have to lead in such a way that if you were gone tomorrow, would it still float? Mm-hmm. Would that ship still move?
Yeah.
So, I just think of legacy, like, how's this going to continue? Do we have people in place? Should I walk away right now? Should I not be here tomorrow? We're not promised tomorrow. So, it's like, let's just.
I think that's what probably makes us a team, is because, his is one area, mine is another. Mm-hmm. And
True.
So for me, I think I somewhat define legacy as relationship and the word. Because if I can create relationship with someone, if I can have a commonality with them long enough to impart God's word into them, and for his word, because his word's eternal. That's going to be a legacy in people's lives.
Yes.
And I think that's one of my greatest joys, is seeing the word of God come alive in someone, and for them to actually grasp what God is saying to them and what the word of God is saying, and that they come alive in that, and they pass it on to someone else.
Yeah.
That, it literally just fires something up inside of them so that they have a lifetime of fire. And like you said, I don't think the fire should ever go out. You shouldn't burn so hot at first that you burn out. You've got to learn, the long run. You got to learn the marathon, that it's for that long.
That was a key word right there. I was going to say marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, I think too many people are sprinters, and forgive me if I'm wrong in this, but there's a lot of maybe leaders or people, whatever jobs they want to try to sprint so hard, right out of the gate.
Hang on, you'll pass them.
And it's attractive. People are
It
attracted
is.
to
Yeah.
the raw speed, if you will, of this. And
I mean,
But
we
wait
watched
and
the
see.
horse races last weekend. I mean, that was.
It's like, hang on.
thank goodness I turned it on at the end. If I'd have sat around all day for a minute of it,
Oh, yeah.
I was just like,
The Kentucky Kentucky
all
Derby
day
is
for
an
that.
all-day thing.
It's an all-day thing, But you see those. It's almost like those announcers and those people that have been around it. They know the horses, and they were calling it out like, such and such, and they're going to run out. They're going to jump the gate, and it's going to tempt those. Boy, that'll preach. It's going to tempt those other horses to want to keep up.
Yep.
But if they'll run their race, what they've been made to do, and they did. I mean, it was.
And that's what's so cool about the horse racing, is the jockey's back there, and he's talking to the horse. Like, a good jockey is talking to his horse. He's keeping the rest of those chatterboxes out of his horse's head, and the horse knows his voice, and so he is talking to him, encouraging him to run his race, encouraging him to do that. And talk about legacy. I mean, this weekend was a prime example. I mean, they said every horse was a descendant. Was a descendant of Secretariat, and so it's like that. Again, a footprint, the DNA of that. And that is, our desire, is not just our girls to have our DNA, but for people that we have impacted, whether they come to this church or not, that should be wherever we go, that we make, not just us, but people in general, that we make an impact on people that they turn around and go, I want to be like that, or that I want what they have.
I heard another pastor just teaching and preaching one time, and he said, if you're going to be a passionate person, be passionate in everything you do. Like if you're passing out French fries at McDonald's out the window, do it with passion.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think if we can, whatever we're doing, if we do it with passion, we leave something and we deposit something in people constantly because of passion.
That's good.
And so with passion, I think you constantly, and if I or we start losing that passion, then I think we got to learn to say, okay, it's time for somebody else to go. Because, everything comes to an end at some point in time. But I think if we start losing that passion, then we probably start losing our length of legacy, what we leave, because we're trying to, the horse is dead. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And so just quit. Let somebody else.
Yeah.
I think it's been good what we've had around here, leaving legacy of allowing people in the pulpit.
Sure.
I mean, even like tonight, Caden, he's preaching, tonight. This
he's
Wednesday
preaching,
night. Yeah.
and then tonight it's our small group night in youth, and so I've got two girls that they're both going to be co-preaching together, doing
That's legacy.
And it's something that I could say that I've learned from you guys.
Yeah.
It's like at some point, I don't, and I joke about it a lot on here, but I don't want to be the 40-year-old youth pastor. Like I want to do other things about it.
Sure.
It's like, so I got to get other people. But you got to start.
Again, it's about team, and it's about empowering people to do what God has placed on their heart. I've experienced plenty of people in positions or places or doing things that God didn't really call them to do. And number one, they're miserable, and
making everybody
number two,
else.
you're miserable because they're miserable. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I've heard it said before, you're fulfilling someone else's calling, someone else's assignment. And it's like, if you're doing that, then you're robbing someone else. So it's like, get in the place that God has purpose for you. And that is part of legacy. The disciples were making disciples. When we quit making disciples,
Yeah.
But that is how the church grows. And, Pastor Chris being here a few weeks ago, everything they do, and that's why we, connected so well. And that's why we're connected to the different ministries we are, the different outreaches in this town, the different places, is because they're about the local church. And it's like, if we're not as a body building not just this church but the local church, then we've missed the point of what God's wanting to do. It's not just the church, but you're filling them full of disciples, right. And we're discipling people to be more like Christ. So,
and I think, Pastor Taryn, I think in that part of this, and we'll try to come to the end, but I think what a lot of churches or pastors or leaders have missed over the past years is they have felt threatened by somebody else coming in a pulpit. Mm-hmm. And I think, they got to get out of that, because and I've always said this, you probably heard me say it before, if somebody wants to go fishing, you're going to get them a fishing pole. If somebody wants to learn to fish, you're going to get them a fishing pole. You're going to get them in a boat. You're going to, so on and so forth. Well, the same is if somebody comes to you out of the student ministry and they've been in camp and they say, man, I feel called to ministry. You should be giving them opportunities to share that. I too, as a pastor, if they're coming up, we need to give them opportunity. Let them get in the pulpit. Let them share, and let them. Hey, there's days, man, when I'm like, bro, Tanner's throwing it down. He's Pastor Tanner's got fire going on up there. I'm like, I'm out of the way. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like,
and to be happy. It's not this competition of like,
oh man,
and like I said, well, if somebody gets up on stage and they preach better than me.
Oh yeah. And that's been something that's happened over like this last couple of decades in the church. And again, we're talking about legacy and longevity. There's been longevity there, but they're not leaving any legacy.
Right.
And if you look across probably the congregation, there's not a crying baby in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be careful of that, because again, we should be building the local church. We should be, about, and it's not just about religion. It's not that. It's these people should be having a relationship with Christ. I think
I think we ought to be able to launch.
Yeah, that's a good word.
I mean, launch. I think our whole purpose should be launching.
When I think of legacy in the church, no matter if you have a position, you don't have a position. If your position is coming in and saying amen, that's a position. Like whatever it is, it's like whatever you're doing in the church, whatever part you are, if you're taking care of babies, if you're wiping noses, if you're greeting people at the door, whatever you're doing, you do it, number one, with passion, but also that's where we learn legacy, because we learn to abide. And when we abide, that's what he tells us to do. When we abide, we never get passed by the church, because we're always part of it, whether you're able to do something or not. It's like we've got a lot of older people in our church as well as younger and everything else, as every church should have. Mm-hmm. But even the older people, it's like they have a position here. They have something to offer.
Purpose.
Sometimes it's just by being present and being there and encouraging people, saying hello to someone, hugging someone's neck. Sometimes it's just that abiding in and just being part of the body of Christ.
Amen to
that he has asked us to do.
Amen. That's
good. And I think legacy has to be that. It has to be abiding no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, that's great. I think those are really good thoughts about just of legacy. And that's, just wrapping up this episode here, of just people to hear that. And really, what I hear from what both of you guys are saying is that it's just about what people say about you. Mm-hmm. After this is all said and done, it's not about, the things that I acquired, but it's, like even for me, I can sit around my family and I can hear stories about people. I got stories of my family, people like 1800s and all these things, and they were, bootleg and all this, whatever stuff.
Right.
But it's like there's a legacy in that, there's stories, and they are still talked about because they made an impact on somebody that wanted to tell the story to the next. And I think about, that moment of, wow, there's a lot of people that can say, because of Pastor Mike, because of Pastor Kristy, I'm here. We got kids in our youth group right now that their parents were kids that were in your youth group.
Right.
And that they're like, you know what, I don't even know you, talking about me, but they were like, I know where you come from. That's good enough for me to send my kids to that church because of the legacy, the lineage of it. So I think these are all such great things.
Can I make one?
Yeah.
I think it's keeping a vision too. Because I think if we're gonna build a fire and we're gonna keep a fire burning, we have to know where we're gonna get our next wood.
It's good.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
we got to know where we're cutting it. We got to know how we're going to get it. Because if we're going to keep that fire going, and we want to, we got to have the wood. So it's like, you got to know. Does that make sense? And so, anyway, I just, and we're saying all these things, but it just keeps going and keeps going.
You guys are just going to go ahead and preach my message for
It's just
Sunday.
going. So,
Sunday.
anyway,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's good.
Sorry.
No, that's great. Yeah. But I think these are all such good things. And I hope that
I wish it wasn't over with.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I know where you work. So
I have your number.
I know which office you're in, so we'll get you back. I know. I was like, I want to get them. I was like, around like episode 6 or 7, I was thinking about. And I was like, no, I need to hold out till 10, but we'll get you back on. Hey, we've already talked about one really fun episode that we're going to do with you and somebody else.
Yes.
And he's going to be on here, and people are going to be like, what?
Yeah.
So
Just hold out.
yeah,
Hold
we
out.
got some cool stuff coming. We got a lot of great guests, even this summer coming up, from different speakers that are coming in. We're talking about even ladies conference stuff, getting that on the calendar. I am so
Yeah, because
excited.
we have Tracy Mitchell
Right, we got
and
Tracy.
and Jamie Bates.
We got Jamie
coming
Bates,
in.
and so I'm
it's
really
gonna be good.
excited. You talk about being nervous about being on. I'm excited about them too. Or I'm nervous
nervous.
about.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So
like I
what's
know Tracy
super
a little,
cool
but like
What's
Jamie-
super
Is
cool?
we get to go, like I've put it out there for the ladies and all, but like I'm going to South Lake, Texas with them several weeks before our
That's cool.
conference. So our conference is going to be legit
That's good.
this year. It's gonna
That's
be so
cool.
cool.
That's awesome. So we got some fun stuff coming up. As always, I just want to say to those that have listened or watched today, thank you so much for just being a part of the podcast. There's no way we'd be able to have any reason to keep doing this if you weren't listening or letting people know. So share it out there. I think this is a great just for anybody to listen to just think about tomorrow. Tomorrow starts today, and the decisions that we make.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys for your insight. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for the legacy that you're leaving, that I can sit here and talk with people that in one location for going on 19 years now, that we can celebrate what God has done because you got up every day, because you mowed the yard, because you pumped water out, and that you didn't run away from it. And because of that, you've built these relationships, and it's an amazing thing. So thank you guys so much, and thank God for what He's done in your guys' life, and that we get to do this. So thank you for being a part of the pod, and we will catch you on the next one. That's right. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Yeah, we go through all. You got to hit your subscribe. Obviously, you found a way to get here, but I'm going to tell you that YouTube's the best way. So watch us on YouTube. But if for some reason you hate it, Apple, Spotify, all those good things. But
And share it.
Share it for sure. We'll see you guys on the next one.